Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and most welcome to day number 3 of Gitex Global. Can we please have a round of applause? Thank you so much. صباح الخير. أنا اسمي لورا وصراحة أنا مبسوطة وايد بحضوركم. To kick things off, we are going to start our day with a panel session. So our topic of the day is cybersecurity. And to start, it is my utmost pleasure to welcome onto the stage Eleni Giokos. She is an anchor and correspondent of CNN UAE. Can we please give her a nice warm round of applause?
Thank you so much. A very good morning to all of you, Your Excellencies, special guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eleni Giokos. I'm an anchor correspondent for CNN and absolutely delighted to be with you today. Our topic this morning, state cybersecurity outlook and how that is going to shift the future of AI. And of course, all the vulnerabilities that we've been seeing across the world. Just a couple of notes on this. Worldwide cybercrime costs are estimated at $10.5 trillion. That's expected to be hit by 2025, making it the third largest economy globally. I mean, it is an absolutely astonishing number. And we have to take cognizance of this because we're starting to see a lot more spending within the space and ensuring that we get rid of the vulnerabilities that exist in a new environment of geopolitical tensions that are playing out right now. On that note, I'd like to welcome my guests this morning, His Excellency Gustavo Villate, Minister of Information, Technology and Communication of Paraguay. So welcome. We have a special seating arrangement today. You'll be seated over there for me, thank you. His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Al-Kuwaiti, Head of Cybersecurity UAE. Welcome, sir. His Excellency Nicodemos, Damianou, Deputy Minister of Research, Innovation and Digital Policy, Deputy Ministry of Research, Innovation, Cyprus. Welcome, sir. You'll be seated over there for me. Todd Conklin, Chief AI Officer and Deputy Assistant Secretary, Cybersecurity, CI Protection, U.S. Department of Treasury, and Todd, you'll be sitting over here. We've got my quick notes on seating arrangements. The Right Honourable Stephen McPartland, former UK National Security Minister. So welcome. You need to sit right next to me because you'll be interrogated the most. Zabri, Adil, Talib, Head of Division, Responsive Technology and Services, Cybersecurity, Malaysia. Welcome, sir. And Dr. Diane Janosek, award-winning cybersecurity leader and attorney. Welcome. Right. Are you aware of the man-in-the-middle attack? Do you know what that is? Do some of you know what that is? Man-in-the-middle? Diane, I think we should tell them what the man-in-the-middle attack is. Because we've got a man-in-the-middle attack.
This panel has all the men in the middle. So when you want to have 2 women on the outside, we can protect the men in the middle.
We're protecting the men.
So we can prevent the men in the middle attack. We want to protect Dr. Al-Kuwaiti.
Yeah? Do you feel protected?
Actually, as a matter of fact, it's not only a man in the middle now. There are women, there's a country, there's a whole thing in the middle. And this is what AI brought to us. We don't even know how to distinguish between a deep fake, a man, a real man, or so it is something really changing the whole thing.
Absolutely. The point is we're protecting you, and this is what we're trying to do. Minister, I want to talk about, and I really want to start with where we stand right now. And I think it's really important to take note of just the increases that we've been seeing in cyber attacks. The World Economic Forum in 2022 was saying it had increased by 360% over the past years, a few years before that. I can imagine that that's increased even more since then. So give us a state of play right now and what's happening in Paraguay and how that speaks to global trends.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And what we are doing in Paraguay right now is having acceleration of the digitalization. And accelerate this digitalization means a lot of risk, but the risk of not doing this is a lot worse. So what we are doing is taking this this kind of investment, but invest in people. People is one of our major concern in terms of the skills we need and the trained people that we are working with different partners, not only internally but also external. We have, I saw Taiwan there. We are one of the few countries that have diplomatic relations with Taiwan, so we are working with them in terms of inter-exchange cybersecurity. We have a technological university having training people there with academic from Taiwan, and this kind of relation gives us the experience we need in order to accelerate the process of digitalization, but also having the experience from other people that already advanced the most in terms of technology and using this kind of expertise that they have. So the thing that we are doing in Paraguay right now is from the government start last year, August 15, we start in an accelerated process that we almost been a little bit faster than our neighbors. We have the digital ID, we have more than a few thousand processes that we are doing all digitalized. We are having this objective of having all the services of the government digitalized by the end of the year, but it comes with a big risk. A risk that every time the president talks about in the UNGA, we were in New York last month talking about what the country needs, what the Paraguay stands for, and every time this happens, we receive a lot of attacks from different sides of the world. So this is a big problem, and the problem is that we need to realize that cybersecurity is a big issue that we need to address it all together. We need to talk about this. We need to understand what the impact is in the economy, what the impact is in the government. And I think this kind of thing gives you the perspective of what we are doing in terms of not only on the tech space, but also in the geopolitical, and trying to drive this through what we are doing right now.
I mean, Minister, fascinating that even if you're just voicing who you align with politically, that could result in cyber attacks. And Your Excellency, I want you to jump in here to tell us about this new front that we're seeing in geopolitics and in war. This isn't just traditional boots on the ground anymore. This is a new frontier, and that's cybercrime. Could you give me a sense of what you're seeing in terms of trends? And I think it's important to set the scene in this regard at a time where geopolitics is taking center stage, specifically in this region.
Thank you very much for, again, all of the audience being with us, joining us on this great event. Gitex Global is actually setting a great platform for networking, for really looking at those trends, for really doing and addressing many of those new solutions for that. Today, with all of those smart cities, AI cities, as well as all of this digital transformation we've been hearing about. As a matter of fact, everybody is using those technologies today. Everybody have already been transferred digitally into this new era. Yet, yes, there are threats. Yes, there is great threat landscape that are increasing exponentially every time we adopt a new technology. There are three threats, if I may actually summarize those. One is the cyber crimes. Definitely those, the frauds, the scams, the impersonations, so many of those aspects that we see as a personal level, and every single consumer here, as well as user, I'm sure they have faced similar to this, or some of their relatives have faced similar to such crimes. The second one, or the second main threats that we see as well, is the cyber terrorism. And this is where many of the geopolitical aspects have brought this, as a matter of fact. And that includes many of this misinformation, disinformation, and really changing the mindset of the publics towards terrorism ideologies, and really working on many of those aspects, and that's what we've seen, and that's what we are countering, as a matter of fact, across all of the platforms, as well as across all of the awareness and sessions that we do. So definitely cyber terrorism, it's in that virtual world, and we need to ensure everybody is secure about that. And the third one is cyber warfare. We saw around us many of those cyber attacks focusing and targeting critical infrastructures. Things that we depend our lives on: electricity, oil, gas, aviation, or even as simple as healthcare. And we saw how ransomware is actually really targeting those healthcare without even paying attention to the people behind that, and the victims who could suffer and even lose their lives, God forbid, in many of those attacks. So definitely those three threats are the major things that we see, and yes, they are related in this area of the world, and this is what we are actually trying to counter from. Putting our hands together, really partnership, as His Excellency mentioned, really working in order to build up a collision, a deterrence strategy. And we always call it the Cyber Geneva Convention, something that allows us to really feel safe. All of those small or medium or even large businesses, they want to feel safe once they connect online. And today, we just came today in the morning, as a matter of fact, from an investigation of another attack and things that we actually follow as ransomware related. So even in every day that we see, there is a huge type of attack. So let's put our hands together. Let's really build that Cyber Geneva Convention, or partner in for the good and for the resiliency of our collective efforts.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for setting the scene on that. And so much to go on to. We're going to talk about this Geneva Cyber Convention. I think it's really important. Minister, I want to come to you, and I want to talk about, and something that really interesting that His Excellency had mentioned was specific on some of the threats, and small and medium-sized enterprises. A lot of the companies and people that we see here are representative of this space, and they're wondering how to protect themselves and what the next steps are and what those risks could be down the line, because no one is immune.
Thank you, Eleni. And just to say what a pleasure it is to be here, such an iconic event. It does feel like a superstar to be on this stage. Thank you for hosting us. And so, to your question, I was thinking, when I was on the plane flying in here a couple of nights ago, I couldn't sleep as always, and so I decided to watch this documentary about Amazon and Jeff Bezos. And when you're going through that, and you're also thinking about your upcoming cybersecurity panel at Gitex, you can't help but wonder what happens if one of those global hyperscalers suffers an attack, a successful attack, and goes down. I'm not suggesting that this will happen, as actually these environments are much more secure than any other environment. But what happens if that's the case? What happens if the internet is down? Last week I was at the STS forum in Japan, one of the biggest in research and innovation, and this question was posed and was discussed. What happens if we are without internet? Can you imagine that? How do we go about doing that? So to your question, I think even if we talk about SMEs, small, medium enterprises, and in Cyprus it's mostly SMEs, we're still talking about the global landscape. So collaboration is the fundamental principle here for a couple of reasons, and I'm just going to say the fact that we are seeing threats at the cyberspace converging with physical threats. So what's a cyber attack now is causing an attack on a physical infrastructure, a physical asset, and that asset is not restricted to a particular territory. is cross-country, so we all have interest to protect that asset. And then on the other hand, all these emerging technologies, AI being at the center of it, but not just AI, I think they are pushing us into uncharted territory. So I was reading the other day that 20 minutes in the metaverse can generate up to 2 million data points. I mean, imagine the prospect for these threat actors exploring all that. And what happens if quantum computing, nobody knows when it's coming exactly, but what happens if quantum computing breaks PKI infrastructures and encryption algorithms? And what happens to our digital IDs, which are fundamental to our digital infrastructures? We are here in Dubai at the center of what governmental digitalization means, and we cannot realize that the attack surface for these threat actors is changing exponentially. So we need to work on that and help the SMEs cope.
Brilliant insight there, truly illuminating, and it kind of reminds me a lot of what Dr. Janosek and I were talking about before we came on stage about collaboration and creating a framework, a global framework, which was reiterated by both ministers as well as His Excellency. Tell me what solutions you would be proposing that can be used across various sectors and various sizes of businesses as well as at a national level.
Thank you for that question, and thank you to Gitex for having me. Thank you, Your Highness, for having us here as well. So from the United States perspective, we wholeheartedly agree that there's 3 areas: the cybercrime, cyberterrorism, and cyber welfare. I believe that the cyber welfare has the most opportunity for all of us, especially as nations coming together. You often look at cyber solutions or cyber partnerships along the lines of at the national and country level, or individuals collaborating. What I would offer up is that we need to do more in the cyber welfare arena by sectors, and also do it multinational. I believe that the UAE, headed up by Dr. Al-Kuwaiti with respect to cyber, the reputation that's here in terms of its neutrality, its embracing multiple nations, would actually be a wonderful host to have a pledge to have secure trade for cyber welfare and secure supply chain for the healthcare sector. Just at a very start to the pilot in terms of truly embracing multiple entities coming together at the private, public, and individual level, coming together across the sectors, first with healthcare, then maybe later step into finance, and then also the energy sector. So by sector, multinational coming together.
What's the timeline on that, do you think, if you get collaboration, multinational collaboration?
I think the time is now. If we've seen that, the UN is already looking at the cybercrime convention, taking a look and see what it can do in the area of cybercrime. I'm also currently working on a chapter it's going to be a Geneva manual on cyber threat intelligence sharing. I wrote the chapter on law and policy on cyber threat intelligence sharing across countries, 55 partner nations. I think the time is now. I think just here, look at the stage, who's here on the stage in terms of their participation across continents, truly across continents. If we can meet here, we definitely can do multinational, by-sector partnerships. And I would like to think of it as a community of trust. Cyber threat intelligence sharing can occur within communities of trust. You just have to be very particular, and then you can, in terms of who you share with, is establishing that trust, and then really shoring that up and inviting people into that circle of trust once they establish their credibility and their transparency.
Right, Honourable Stephen. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's doable?
Yeah, I'm surprised to be on a panel where I agree with everybody.
Is that why you're smiling? I saw you smiling. Sure. Okay, so you agree. You think that this is an achievable prospect. But, there's something else that has sort of come up, and I really want to unpack this definition of cybercrime versus cyberterrorism, and, the definition of this and how that is going to change the game, basically, because I think that when you're seeing rogue entities trying to breach certain systems, and they know, well, I'm just going to get a slap on the wrist for this, versus being labeled as a terrorist, things could fundamentally change.
I totally agree. I think it's a real pleasure to be here. It's a great honour to be at Gitex, my first experience, so thank you, Your Excellency, for your hospitality. I've been struck by the energy, the enthusiasm, and the desire to collaborate and create real change. I think when we think about cybersecurity, it's an abstract concept that people often think of as happening out there somewhere. It doesn't apply to me. But the reality is, the lines are blurring between cyber criminals and hostile state actors, and that means the lines are blurring between cyber crime and cyber terrorism. So essentially, the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility in the United Kingdom, which checks the homework of Her Majesty's Treasury, His Majesty's Treasury, they essentially said that a successful cyber attack on the United Kingdom economy would cost 1.6% of GDP. So 1.6% of GDP on a multi-trillion-dollar economy. That's the size of what a successful cyber attack would look like. So it's very difficult to say that cybercrime, that starts to move towards, it's a national security issue, whereby if we're spending 2% of GDP on our armed forces on an annual basis all over the planet, if one successful cyber attack on one particular day could cost up to 1.6% of GDP, you're talking about cyber terrorism. That's a particular attack to take down and undermine an economy. So at that stage, you have to think, where are the lines between cyber criminals and at what level do you operate and move towards cyber terrorism and using terrorism legislation to pursue those criminals who may be acting on behalf of a hostile state actor? And I think that's something we need to be thinking about quite hard. And then as we evolve that, we start to think about cyber criminals do not respect boundaries, they do not respect nationalities, they do not respect borders, they respect opportunities and they innovate. So the next level is you need a global collaboration and developing ecosystems in all of those countries so that you can then move forward and help the whole of the planet and all those nations protect their citizens. The first duty of any government is to protect its citizens, and I think that's one of the big challenges we have. That cybersecurity is seen as abstract, but the actual costs and implications are huge.
Absolutely, and you bring up something so important is how much are we spending relative to GDP in terms of cybersecurity. And I think this is vital. Todd, I can see you want to jump in here. The spending notion is going to be one that's very important. People need to start pricing this in. If you're a small business, if you're government, wherever you are, and what kind of spending would you say is required?
It's significant, and that's one thing we've heard from the boards of our largest financial institutions in the United States, who are spending, in some cases, billions of dollars. One firm spending more than billions of dollars just on cybersecurity, not even its IT infrastructure. That's not a sustainable solution, right? And I think everyone's openly questioning at this point, is it worth the investment? Are they still in a position where they're able to prevent a nation-state action against their firm, despite that billion-dollar expenditure? And that's something that caused the U.S. Treasury Department, which is responsible for the broader health of the function of the U.S. financial sector, to really rethink its strategy. And how do we move away from analyzing this from afar as a policy problem and trying to policy update and paper our way out of this problem into a really true tactical improvement in this space? And what does that look like? It looked like a new strategy that we rolled out a year ago called Project Fortress, which involved more proactive defensive solutions. So we're actively doing external monitoring of our smallest financial institutions. In some cases, we can't afford to do it themselves, to identify the core vulnerabilities that they have in their public endpoints. We're automating for the first time the flow of intelligence information to those firms directly into their protective DNS offerings, thanks to a partnership with Cloudflare. And then where appropriate, we're taking offensive actions through various cross-government solutions that we have. So it's time to kind of stop treating this as a policy problem, get really tactical, and then take advantage of the great partnerships that we'll be able to establish. This is my second year in a row at Gitex. Last year, I had the pleasure with His Excellency to sign an MOU with UAE, and it's become our strongest partnership on a weekly basis. We're collaborating and sharing information back and forth. We have to get tactical. We have to automate the flow of intelligence internationally.
Zabri, if you could give me a sense of what Malaysia is doing right now. I know that you've brought in Malaysia's Cybersecurity Act 2024. Tell me about this act and how it helps give the protections required across the board.
Okay, Cybersecurity Act has been, we've fought for it for many years. It's been a long fight because we understand that Cybersecurity Act is very important. Self-regulations doesn't work anymore. The government need to take control to establish regulatory aspect of it. You know, it's not only help to protect the critical infrastructure, but at the same time, it will help to nurture the digital economy in the aspect of, you know, cybersecurity industry. You know, most of the SMEs, the corporates, came to us and told us why there is no business from the government, there is no tender. Why? Because when you leave it to each ministries, each organizations, you know, they will think about, you know, the operations. They will think about the developments. They will put IT or security aspect of it, you know, in the behind. So what happened is, through Cybersecurity Act, it is mandated that each organization, critical organization, to conduct assessments every year, each year, and then these service providers must be licensed, must be licensed, and this will create the needs to put budgets, the needs to spend more, and then these industry players, cybersecurity industry can nurture more. And at the same time, Malaysia is moving towards full digital transformation, whereby this is where we believe that the next economy is. The current economy is already plateau, it's already there. In order to move forward is through digital economy.
So can I ask you this? I mean, moving from an industry that was self-regulated to now being imposed regulation, what's the uptake been? What has been the response from the private sector?
They are supporting. They support it because it's a good thing for them. We told them that if we have the Cybersecurity Act, you know, it will create demands because all critical infrastructure organization, we have 11, we gazetted 11 sectors to monitor their infrastructure, their computer system, their monitoring system. They need to have their own SOCs, they need to be audited yearly. They must reach cybersecurity maturity level at certain level that accepted by all. So the idea is to create trust. You know, first we need to establish the cybersecurity, and then once we establish cybersecurity, we will try to reach cyber resilience. And when it will test it, and then the public will trust the platform, the online platform, the digital platform, they will participate and spend more.
Brilliant. Okay, really good format there. Your Excellency, I know that the UAE is coming out with 3 new cybersecurity policies expected by the end of this year. Tell me about those policies and how it's going to change the playing field.
So definitely, we always update those policies. We always ensure that such policies are kept with whatever technologies are out there. So in UAE, we have, as a matter of fact, first of all, the cybersecurity strategy is going to be updated since we already finished almost 4-5 years in that regard. So we're shifting into this new cybersecurity strategy that focuses on governing as well as defending, protecting, partnering, innovating, and that's the main thing that we're actually focusing on, using AI, using many of them. With that strategy, there will be as well those 3 or even we're trying to actually release even more. But those 3, one of them is cybersecurity for IoT, the Internet of Things, and how you actually govern those Internet of Things. What are the compliances that you could actually leverage and use that Internet of Things? And this varies between a simple device that you could use as a base for healthcare type of aspects, and this all goes all the way to essentials that you will put in a factory, an oil and gas type of factory. Those Internet of Things, there is a set of standards of security that need to be adhered to. Then there is the cloud-first policy that we already actually have released, and now we are enhancing it to actually adopt more security in this regard. And the third one is the security operation centers. Everybody has to have that SOC. That's the visibility that we need to know, an early warning system that allows us to know what is or where we actually stand in many of those things. Then there is the most important thing that we always actually delegate about, is the encryption policy. We're releasing an encryption policy as well that takes us even post-quantum policy. Our friends from the US, for example, or even in the European Union have already released something about the post-quantum policies. So this is as to us to
So, Your Excellency, I want to ask you this question. From my understanding, the UAE faced 71 million cyber attacks in just the first quarter of this year. 71 million?
And who's counting?
Is that under
who's counting? 71 million. In 1 week, we had faced more than 200,000 attacks. Because of the geopolitical aspects happening around us, because of the stand of UAE in some of those cases, because of many things that are actually related in that perspective. UAE, one thing is the financial sectors. It's a hub in many of those financial sectors. That's why sometimes you see those attacks focuses on such financial sectors that we need to be always resilient. DDoS attacks, for example, by itself, having a single DDoS that can take over, critical infrastructures with a continuous more than 150 gigabytes and continuously try to actually take down that area. This is by itself is a huge and really...
How many of those actually broke through the system?
Alhamdulillah, with the resiliency we have, with the partners that we have here, with the collaboration we have with everybody, there was no successful attacks in this perspective.
I did get a few weird messages about an Aramix parcel that I never ordered. If you click on that, don't click on it. You guys know, right?
Those the phishing ones and
don't click on anything.
And this is everywhere. This is what we call those cyber crimes. The cyber crimes, definitely the fraud and the scams are, let's say, everywhere. Now the awareness, that's the first line of defense you need from cyber scams. Awareness. You need to be vigilant.
Absolutely.
You need to be really aware.
So, Your Excellency, you mentioned something important. Of course, the geopolitical environment right now that we're facing in this region. And I think a few weeks ago, something really, shocked the world, where you saw Hezbollah with pages and walkie-talkies, which were legacy technology, thinking, well, they can't be breached, right? You can't intercept these, but they were breached in a different way, and they exploded, right? And I think about this story because we all have our electronics at an arm's length, and it just brings in this new realm of possibility that the software can be breached, but also the hardware. Diane, tell me about this new realm of reality that it's now opened up, and how we need to be thinking about our hardware and our software.
Thanks for that question. So as we know, to me, I see cybercrime evolves into cyber terrorism based upon the intent, right? Is it for monetary, is it for criminal purposes, or is it for the intent for cyber terrorism? So what we've been seeing is that anything can be a tool, anything can be a weapon. Even with respect to anti-satellites, satellite-to-satellite attacks can also be cyber-related. So what I would say is that what we saw with the pagers, for example, was more the hardware was obviously compromised, and we usually are typically looking at software. The software can really cross regions, international boundaries, makes it much easier in terms of exploitation as well. But now that we're looking at the hardware and knowing that in and of itself is an element that we have to be concerned about, that's why I really believe that we have to look more closely at maybe your competitor is not your competitor. Maybe for purposes of cybersecurity, they're your partner. Just because you're in the same sector, you're maybe in some area of manufacturing, they may be a competitor to you. However, you might want to team up and create common SOCs. We saw with that country, Malaysia, they're now establishing and requiring and mandating certain requirements I would offer that people should team across sectors, team on this, on hardware, not just on software, and really make a pledge to say, notwithstanding the fact that we may be competitors geopolitically or within the universe in which we're selling items, we are going to come together. And what I really see in cybersecurity that we have to really think very differently about in the age that we're in is cyber really does create strange bedfellows. And it's strange bedfellows, but in a good way as well. Meaning who you can partner with, how you're going to partner, how you're going to trade, and really have security in that relationship. So I would offer that we need to have secure and trade pledge by multiple entities to really push this forward. So there is not that concern where you have something in your pocket and you have to be worried about it.
Yes, for instance.
I totally agree with the great words again my colleague mentioned. The geopolitical aspects, specifically on this specific, let's call it attack, really have technologies that are not even advanced, not even AI we're talking about, not even something that we've seen today from the cybercrime and the cyber terrorism. We're talking about pages that have been in market for more than 30, 40 years, have been again infiltrated using the supply chains or using any of the hardware or software type of attacks. Now the importance is to build that trust, that supply chain, that trust with the entities, with the trade, with many of those aspects, as well as the importance of having a check and balances of many of those devices. For example, having a test and validation lab that actually double check and do, as we do in the cyber pen testing, vulnerability assessment, before we take that specific device and use it into our environment or government environment. We have to adhere and comply with the checklist that we usually use.
Minister Villate, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I think that just regarding the cooperation and everything that we are seeing, I think we have nobody can say that the world is more connected than ever before, but we are not integrated. And for integration, we need to trust. And I think this is the thing that we need to be more interested and to go further in the relation with the other nation, because as already mentioned, there is no border in the internet. There's no way to realize that all the countries are connected right now. For example, Paraguay has clean and renewable energy, and it only consumes 30%. 70% of the energy that it produces, it exports. And if something is vulnerable, it will affect all the region. But Paraguay also is larger than Germany in terms of land, but it has only 6 million people, but export food for more than 100 million people. What happens is logistics is affected. So we need to cooperate because the world is connected, but we are not integrated in several ways. So I think it's really important what we are talking, what we are doing right now, but we need to go further into more action. And I think that's the next step, how we can do and go with action.
Thank you. I think I totally agree. It was what I touched on when I first spoke, collaboration. And I'm going to try and look at the future a little bit as well. In Europe, we are promoting this collaboration through common structures and organizations. ENISA is the EU strategy body that coordinates the response towards cybersecurity. The newly established European Cybersecurity Competence Center is operating through a network of national cybersecurity centers and is focusing on coordinating research and education, awareness into this matter. It's set to currently manage a 2 billion euro fund from Horizon Europe and Digital Europe programs. So all of these things are happening in terms of the collaboration. It's important to work on that. And we need to realize that with AI coming into the scene, what fundamentally changes is that we had an industry where the deep-pocketed enterprises maybe who are building the solutions for cyber crime had potentially access to resources and tools and skills that most of the cyber criminals didn't have. Now with AI, this is becoming a level playing field.
It's almost like democratizing.
It is actually. They have the same
in the wrong
tools.
way.
They have the same tools, they have the same techniques, and now this cat and mouse fast-pacing industry is accelerating even more. And this is creating a larger industry. You mentioned the numbers in the beginning in your intro, Eleni. It's creating high-paying jobs. It's creating an even wider skills gap that we need to address.
Yeah, the skills is a very big issue. Todd, you want to jump in here? Just so you know, we're going to get final comments from right on Stephen as well as from Zabri in just a moment. But also, if you can integrate in your answers, what do you believe the biggest cyber risk is right now facing the world at a time of immense uncertainty? I know I have anxiety because you just know what the new threat and risk is going to be, but Todd, jump in here.
So, I mean, ransomware is still top of my concern list, and I think he's actually covered the risk really well. I would just add in March 27th, Treasury published an AI study specific to the gaps in adoption of AI across the U.S. financial sector. It's available on the Treasury website, treasury.gov/AI. But the main element of that point from a risk perspective is the concept of the data requirement for our AI models. And many firms require external data to fuel the models, which poses a significant amount of risk from an operational security perspective. How you bring your data in, how you clean your data, how you store your data. It's a new angle of risk that we really go deep on the report, so that's something that I want to cover before you.
Is that the biggest risk, do you think?
I think there's a lot of risks. I would say ransomware right now is still top of my list, but in terms of emergent risk, under the AI bubble then, mimicking audio, video, that's posing some significant challenges within our fraud ecosystem.
There's a lot of risks, so we can't sleep easy at night, ladies and gentlemen. Zabri. Okay, in Greek culture, luckily I have a fellow Greek, when you spill water, Minister, that means money's coming your way. Do you do the same in Cyprus? Yeah, there you go. That's good luck.
Okay, as for Malaysia, the major risk is the legacy system. There's a lot of old computers, old systems that need to be replaced in order to catch up with the current technology. So this will cost a lot of budgets from the government. And then some of these systems are still not up to the standard. And then another issue is basically the digital gaps. The digital gaps between the one who lives in the city and then the one who lives in the rural area. So how do we protect those people living in the rural area? So they are exposed to many risks, and they become the victim of scam. So I believe that in Malaysia, these are the two things that we need to solve immediately.
Fantastic. Right on, I'm giving you the last word.
Very, very kind. I think being very clear, there's no possibility of having a successful artificial intelligence strategy without a strong cybersecurity strategy based on resilience and recovery to actually embed protections inside that vehicle. That is a big reality. And I think the biggest risk is not realising that. So there's a lot of companies moving forward on artificial intelligence, but not moving forward when it comes to a successful cybersecurity strategy to protect that. And as His Excellency said, 71 million attacks on the UAE. I think we should celebrate the fact there were 71 million attacks and none of them went through because of global collaboration and partnerships which helped to protect them. So I think we should celebrate some of these figures as opposed to being upset about those figures. Finally, in the UK, we put a new law in around security by design. So building on some of the other points where we're essentially saying manufacturers providing products have to ensure that those products are secure. And for me, it's the supply chains. In the United Kingdom, multi-trillion-dollar economy, lots of big businesses that we've all heard of. over 99% of all businesses in the United Kingdom are small and medium-sized enterprises. Every single one of those large businesses stands on the shoulder of thousands of SMEs in all of these countries represented here today and throughout the whole of this hall. So we have to get cybersecurity pushed down into our supply chains.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for our fantastic delegates today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to all of you for your insights. Thank you.